Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Starfield. I played on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on the Series S and PC. So we'll start with the story. You make your own character, and, well, your character is a miner. While on an excavation type job, you find an artifact, and, well, you get a really trippy, weird vision with music. Which I know is kind of a weird way of describing it, but that's how they describe it. After which point, you are invited to an organization called Constellation, a group of people who have found other artifacts and are kind of just set on exploring the galaxy. But after finding these artifacts, well, they're kind of set on finding more of these artifacts, where they came from, what their purpose is, etc. So unsurprisingly, this gets you wrapped up into a big old galactic adventure. And honestly, going into this, I didn't know how much I would enjoy the story, but I actually enjoyed it. I will say right now, I did not complete it. This is a huge-ass game, and there's a lot to do, and yeah, I didn't complete the story, I definitely didn't complete the game. But I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed the stories of the side missions and all the other little writing and story building that was going on in the game. As for the audio, I think the music is really good, very well done, does a great job throughout the game, plenty of background music, which I always love. Then you've got the voiceover work, which I think is very well done. I really like all the different characters, and I think the actors did a great job bringing so many different characters to life. And then you've got the sound effects, and I'm trying to think if there was any problems I ever had with the sound effects. I didn't. And they're really good sound effects for the different weapons, for the different creatures, for the different planets, the background noises of the cities, and, you know, when you're out exploring the planets, the noise in space, or noises in your spaceship, I should say. I think all of that did a great job helping breathe life into the game and the experience. Now let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. This is a first-person RPG, and it really does follow a pretty standard Bethesda flow, I guess you'd call it. You've of course got your main story and the quests around that, and those can kind of branch a bit. But then there are just so many other things going on in this game, maybe a little bit too much. There's the space exploration, there's the missions, whether they're main or side, there's base building, there's all the different kinds of crafting, there's a lot going on. One thing I love about the side missions, not all of them, but sometimes you'll just be wandering around and your character will overhear something, and that'll unlock the side mission for you, making it fairly easy to find quite a few side missions. But other times, characters will walk up to you and basically provide them to you. But let's get into the RPG elements a bit. You complete missions, you defeat enemies, you explore, you craft. All of those things will give you XP, and then you put them into certain skills. Like myself, I was working on pistols, rifles, sneaking, ballistic weapons specifically, and a few other things, you know, centered around that. I will say it's probably not my favorite leveling system in a Bethesda game, but I do think it works and I did enjoy it. You can roll solo or with a companion. I didn't find the companions amazing, we'll say. I think the AI in the companions is kind of busted. They definitely get in your way. They can be a bit more of a problem than not, but there are plenty of situations where having the companion is extremely beneficial. Specifically, I found them extremely beneficial in conversations and as pack mules, because, you know, it's a Bethesda game. But having a specific companion with you can unlock certain dialogue options when you're doing the whole dialogue thing, which, like any good Bethesda game, there's the whole dialogue thing. You know, choosing what you want to say, asking more information, persuasion mini-games, which I did pretty well with and actually enjoyed. I also forgot, like, the building your spaceship. I didn't get too deep into that because I knew I could really lose myself in that, and I wanted to experience more of the story and missions and all of that. But man, that gets deep. You can go in depth. I'm sure a lot of you have seen online people building all sorts of wacky spaceships. I've seen the X-Wing, I've seen the magic fucking school bus, you know, just all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to say, I really enjoyed the mechanics. I thought they worked very well. I was never really at a loss for the mechanics. I think you can jump in and get enough of a hold of them that you don't have to go too deep with them and still enjoy the game. But if you want to go deep and lose yourself in some of this shit for hours and hours on end, you can very easily do that as well. I do think when you're first doing some of the space exploring, it feels a little clunky, whereas when you're just trying to backtrack to places, that is much more simple, and I like that. It just works more smoothly, I would say. And I also find this game extremely annoying, like one thing. So you have 4 different move speeds. You have walk, you have fast walk, you have jog, and you have sprint. NPCs move at none of those fucking speeds. They move faster than your walk, but slower than your fast walk. It's so fucking frustrating. And yes, I am sure I have forgotten plenty of stuff in this part because, like I said, there is just a lot going on in this game. But let's get into the controls, and I don't love the camera control, I'm gonna say that now. Maybe I need to tweak my settings a bit, but I have played plenty of first-person shooters where I felt like the camera was just far better than this. As for the movement, the responsivity, and the mapping of the controls, it took me a little while. Some of the buttons are a little different than what you'd expect. Most games, like A is jump, not in this. Which kind of makes sense because there's a lot more stuff to interact with in this game. But once you get used to it, it works very well, and I didn't have any complaints with that. Just like I said, camera control aiming wasn't necessarily in love. Oh, I should also say, you can go third person, totally forgot to mention that, so you can be first or third person, whether you're flying your ship or running around on foot. But let's get into the graphics and visuals, and this is a very good looking game. I am going to say I don't think it's necessarily the best looking game, but that is not to detract from it at all. There are better looking games out there, but this is by far, in my opinion, the best looking Bethesda game. I do think they could have put just a little bit more work into some of the facial animations. A lot going on in the mouths, but never anything around the eyes really, or at least not enough to make them feel fully alive, which was always a little distracting to me. It's kind of a weird uncanny valley-ish thing. But that being said, overall the design of the characters and how like realistic they look, I do think they did a great job capturing that and putting a lot of different details into the characters. Just not quite enough when their faces are moving and they're talking and they're supposed to be expressing more emotion. That is a bit of a miss. Damn, the spaceships look cool, the weapons look cool, and let's get into, well, space and the planets. The way they represent space in this game is really awesome, especially the space flight. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun and just a cool element. But when you're on a planet and you're running around, the different creatures, the different fauna, the different, just everything about it, I think they did an awesome job bringing all of that to life. I really enjoyed going to the different planets and seeing the different biomes that you were going to be in and how they might affect your character, which I know isn't necessarily like a visual thing, but you could go to this like planet and it would look hot as balls and it would be hot as balls, and they did such a good job bringing that to life, but they also made it affect your character, which I think is really cool. And they did that with a variety of effects on your character. But seeing the different areas, like not just the planets, but the cities you go to and giving them their own personalities, I think they did a good job with that. But then let's get into some of the weird visual glitches that I ran into, which, you know, it's a Bethesda game, and I'm sure I didn't hit half as many as there were. I'm sure I didn't hit a fraction. But I had a character named Lynn who was stuck under the bottom of my spaceship, which that was fucking weird, man. But then you had other characters who would just kind of like jump, not really jump, they were walking, but suddenly they'd launch, and they weren't really supposed to launch, weird shit like that going on. I had characters falling out of the fucking sky for no reason. I think though the two worst glitches I had were, I wanted to redo a conversation and see the different outcomes, and so I reloaded, and one of the characters who is like pivotal to that cutscene and conversation moving on just wouldn't load again. They just fucking vanished. I had to go back like 15 minutes and redo a whole bunch of shit to get that to work. It was really frustrating. I didn't like that for obvious reasons. And yes, I know I was kind of save scumming a bit by doing that, but still, I'd like it to work properly when I'm save scumming. And the other big one was, despite not crashing much, there were a couple of times where it did crash on me, and I obviously don't enjoy that. So to wrap this up, I love all the little details in this game. Like, another example is, I got a specific ship that belonged to, I don't know, kind of the Batman of this universe. And there were times where I flew into, like, dogfights. Like, I would just warp in and there'd be a dogfight, and the bad guys would just bust ass out of there. They were terrified because I was in this dude's ship. I love little details like that. I think it's awesome. This game does have its fair share of issues, none that really destroyed the game for me. Definitely some things that took me out of the experience here or there, but overall I had a really good time with this game, and I didn't expect to say that I would enjoy it nearly as much as I ended up enjoying it. It's definitely a game I'm going to go back to, which I didn't think I would be saying. So I can very comfortably recommend this game. I had a really good time with it. I think it's fully worth the money. So yeah, just a full recommendation that I really wasn't expecting to be handing out. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, what was the first sci-fi movie you ever saw? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.